Welcome back to Under Construction. I'm Kevin Locken. This is the next video in our series where we teach you the general concepts of carpentry and construction. In our last video, we framed a welded door frame opening. And in this video, we're going to show you how to set the welded door frame. As always, if you guys enjoy the series, please subscribe. We always appreciate that. Any comments or questions, go ahead and hit us in the comments and we'd be happy to answer any of those. Now let's head over to the shop and install the welded door frame. Now when we're talking about welded frames, we're talking about one unit that has welded legs at the bottom. Once we go ahead and install this, we knock those legs off once it's all drywalled. So the first thing that we'll do, so I move this out of the way. You'll notice from the knockdown to the welded frame that this application is a little bit different, like I had spoke before. So on these, it's not going to be your 38 1/4, it's actually going to be 40 inches. So what you're trying to get to is you're trying to get to the outside of this flange because, and I'm just using this for practical purposes, this one already has these clips welded in it, but what you're actually looking at is this clip here. And you'll zip a stud in here and here, and then bend this over the stud to catch it so that it can't go anywhere. So it's a little bit different application than the actual knockdown door frame. But like I said, in this instance here, I wanted to show you this because this is already welded in here. So we've already got our track made up that's going to go in here. So the first step is I'm going to take this frame and I'm going to get it up under these cripples that we've already got set. Now this might go a little bit awkward just because I'm on an elevated platform that we made. And when you're ordering these doors, you're gonna take the door takeoff that's on the door cut. But you always have to add the 5/8. And the door company should go ahead and ask what size stud you're using and the drywall that you're using. But most of the time in commercial, you're using 5/8. So for this particular instance, we're gonna go ahead and level that off a little bit. It looks like one of my cripples is a little bit long. That's okay. So I'm going to go ahead and back out one of these studs at a time. And the reason why I want to do that is because on this one, I actually get to pin the door leg down to the concrete. Whereas I don't do that on the knockdown. I go ahead and just screw the bottom. That's not how this application works. So I'll go ahead and move this out of the way. And what that's going to do is that's going to go ahead and expose this clip that's at the bottom that's welded to the bottom of this frame so this door can't lift or shake. Okay. And like I made an importance on the knockdown frame, that one you're measuring from top down because you want that header to be good. But on this one, you want the floor to be better because you're pinning straight down into the concrete. So if anything has to happen, you have to make the adjustment on each leg. So we're gonna go ahead and check the concrete by the leg. We're 30.5 light, and we are 30.5 light. So we actually got pretty good on this one, and I can go ahead and hammer drill one side down and then go ahead and screw it in. Now, to tap down these legs, I'm going to go ahead and use a 1/4 inch bit and these 1 3/4 tap cons. These are concrete anchors, and the reason why we don't use I've got them over here, the expansion anchors is, let's say that you have to move the door, right? Let's say you've got to cut a little notch in here later because the door needs to be shifted over or something. Inevitably, in a couple hundred doors, you get one or two that are wrong. It just happens. So what we like to do is kind of be preventative for future proofing. And what this does is this allows us to back these screws out so we can go ahead and move this over. Now, one of the things I forgot, which will show us on video, is you have to make sure, and it's unlike the knockdown door frame, is you have to make sure that 5/8 slides past here. So I'm gonna go ahead and get this thing centered. I can look at the marks on here so I know that we're good, but you wanna make sure that when you're going ahead and screwing this thing off at these flanges, which are about every third of the door, so here, here, and here, is you're gonna wanna make sure that this 5/8 sheet of drywall fits in on both sides. So this one can actually come this way a little bit. So that way when we're sliding this thing in, that I have the space on the back side, or else the drywallers are gonna come and adjust the door. And with that, it's gonna take a little bit more time. And I've got plenty of space here. So, okay, all right, so we can go ahead. So now that I've centered this, I've got my drywall in between each side. I've got this drilled out. I'm gonna go ahead and screw this first side in. Okay, gonna go ahead and do this to the opposite side. Let me just personally add, this is probably one of my favorite new tools for the guys. It keeps the dust down like it's supposed to, and just a really nice hammer drill. Now that we've got this side taken care of, I'm still gonna leave this stud loose because I have to put that piece of track in there at the top. So I'm gonna go ahead and loosen this stud, push this back, do the exact same thing to this opposite side here, and put the top track in, and then come and screw this whole sides together. So now that we've got both legs positioned down and hammer drilled into the concrete, we're gonna go ahead and put in the header, which we're gonna cut the exact same size as the opening. So we've got these cripples that are left just kind of dangling here, and I'm gonna go ahead and adjust them now that I can with my square. So I'll go ahead, pull these screws so that these things can hang. So now these cripples are loose, and I'm gonna try and slide this in here. Probably won't go as well as I want it to. A lot of times I'll tell the guys to leave the cripples out until we're ready, but we kind of pre-built this wall so it will be a little bit easier to show. There we go. All right. So the premise of this header is to kind of lock all of this together and basically have something to drill for right here for the drywall so that it catches. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take my square and shove it up under here and basically create a ledge so that the drywallers can screw in here. I'm gonna go ahead and clamp this backside, screw it in, and then I can go ahead and screw these welded plates in. I'll go ahead and finish up on this side by squaring these up. I'm gonna go ahead and lock both of these sides in because that's what gives the door its stability. Now that I've got this taken care of, like I'd mentioned before, I can now go ahead, since I know that this is going to be plumbed because I plumbed the king studs going from top to bottom. Once I bring those in the position that they had started, I can screw those off and then screw the flanges all the way down. Go ahead and push this back to the first position where it started. Zip in a screw, bring this back side. Same thing over here. And one last thing to do is screw in these welded plates. So I'll come over here and I kind of have an eye. You might want to take 2 pieces of drywall and wedge it in between both sides, and that'll give you your spacing that you actually need. I've done this long enough to where I don't need that 5/8 spacing. I can kind of just go by look of what I know that needs to be done. More screws the better. You don't know if this is going to be a heavy wood door, solid core door, or not. So it's always better to throw more screws in than not. Got a lot of pointers in here and they're just not going to go into that 18 gauge. And this is a little bit of the difference of what I'm talking about is these are your self-tappers. And I said that you don't necessarily have to use these on the knockdown frame. But in the case of those being 18 gauge flanges on there, you can't get these pointers into that 18 gauge, so you have to use these self-tappers when we're talking about welded frames. And that's how you install a welded frame. Any comments, questions, go ahead and hit us below, and we'll be happy to answer them for you.